"Uncle, what happened to you? Why did you let the baby sleep under the sand?" Anna's voice quivered, carried away on the sharp morning wind. At first, she didn't think much. Her 6-year-old mind often filled in the blanks with stories. Maybe the man was resting. Maybe the baby was only napping. That's what she told herself as she stood there, her bare toes curling into the wet sand. But then silence answered her, the kind of silence that made the gulls above seem too loud, the waves too heavy. Anna crouched, her knees trembling. She reached out with a cautious hand and shook the man's shoulder. Nothing. His head lolled to the side, lips cracked, seaweed stuck in his hair. "Hey, wake up, Uncle. You can't sleep here. The tide'll come back," she muttered, more to herself than to him. She gave another push, harder this time. His arm shifted slightly, but the weight of him stayed pressed into the sand. The bundle in his arms slipped just enough for her to see the baby's face. Still. Too still. Anna's chest tightened. She touched the child's tiny fingers, half hoping they'd curl around hers. They didn't. Cold. Her heart thudded faster. She shook the man harder, panic rising in her small body. "Wake up. Please, your baby needs you." Nothing. Just a low groan, faint and broken, like a voice drowned in water. She stared at them both, her breath clouding in the chill. For a moment she thought of walking away. She'd seen enough bad things on this beach to know when trouble wasn't hers to carry. But her legs wouldn't move. Her eyes locked on the baby, wrapped in a soaked blanket that smelled of salt and seaweed. "This isn't right," she whispered. "You can't just stay here." Her hands balled into fists. She grabbed the man's coat and shook again, harder than before. Sand scattered, the silver watch on his wrist catching the dull light. The lifebuoy beside him rocked gently with the tide, mocking her helplessness. Finally, his eyelids fluttered. A whisper rasped out, barely audible. "Henry?" Anna froze. The name hung in the air like a ghost. "Uncle, your baby's not moving. You have to get up," she cried, voice breaking. But he slipped back into unconsciousness, leaving her alone with the terrible quiet of the child in her arms. Anna sat back on her heels, staring at them both. Her mind, which a moment ago had been blank and childish, began to race. If she left them, the sea would take them again. If she stayed, maybe someone would blame her. Either way, something in her heart already knew this wasn't just another morning on Eden Bay's broken shore. And though her voice was barely more than a whisper, the waves seemed to pause long enough to hear her say, "I just don't want him to be cold." No. If this story moved you, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to hear your thoughts. And if you believe in stories that matter, remember to like this video and subscribe for more. Anna's arms ached from pulling, but she didn't dare stop. The wagon creaked. The rusted wheels clattered against shells and broken wood as she dragged the unconscious man up the dune path. The baby lay swaddled in a damp towel beside him, unmoving, silent. Every few steps she looked down, hoping for some flicker of life. None came. Her chest felt tight. She told herself she was only moving them to get them off the beach, away from the tide. That was all. But a small, stubborn voice inside whispered something else. She couldn't just leave them. Not after she'd touched the baby's cold fingers. Not after she'd seen the tear on the man's cheek. Halfway up the trail, the wagon caught on a rock and jerked to a stop. Anna tugged hard, her bare heels digging into the sand. The rope bit into her palms. She gritted her teeth and pulled again, whispering to herself, "Come on, Anna, don't let him slip back to the sea." The wagon lurched forward, and she kept moving. The path opened to the edge of Eden Bay's shantytown. Ramshackle shelters made of tarps, corrugated tin, and driftwood clustered along the dunes. To outsiders, it looked like trash. To Anna, it was home. She guided the wagon behind the largest shelter, where a patchwork tarp sagged between two poles. A blue bucket caught rainwater in front, and a rusty shopping cart leaned against the side. This was her world. Inside, Grandma D lay curled under a pile of quilts, her wiry frame rising and falling with shallow breaths. The cough came first, a harsh bark that rattled through the small space. Then her voice, thin but firm. "Anna, child. Where have you been? Anna froze at the entrance, her chest heaving from the effort. Down at the beach, she said carefully. She wasn't ready to explain. Not yet. Grandma D pushed herself up, squinting at the shapes behind Anna. When she saw the wagon, her eyes widened. Lord above. What have you dragged in here? Anna bit her lip. He was lying there, in the sand. He's hurt. And the baby. Her voice cracked. The baby didn't wake up. Grandma D closed her eyes for a long moment. Bring them in. Quick. Before anyone sees, Anna hauled the wagon under the tarp, the smell of salt water and blood filling the cramped shelter. With Grandma D's help, she rolled the man onto the cot that usually held their blankets. He groaned faintly, his head lolling. Anna pulled the wet shirt away from his skin, revealing bruises and cuts across his ribs. Grandma D clucked her tongue. This man's seen the devil's hand. Fetch me the tin can, Anna. We'll clean him up best we can. Anna obeyed, scooping water from the bucket into a rusty tin. She tore strips from one of her old dresses, soaking them before pressing them to the man's temple. He twitched but didn't wake. She dabbed again, whispering, "Stay alive, Uncle, please." The baby lay wrapped in the damp towel at the corner of the cot. Anna couldn't stop looking. She wanted to believe the stillness was just sleep. She wanted to believe the baby would open its eyes and cry. But the longer she stared, the more the truth pressed down. Grandma D's voice softened. Don't fix your eyes too long, child. Some journeys don't turn back. Anna blinked hard. She set the towel tighter around the small body. Like wrapping it could still matter. The man stirred suddenly. His lips moved, dry and cracked. Henry. The word cut through the small shelter like a blade. His eyes fluttered open, dazed, then fixed on Anna. Where's my boy? Anna swallowed. She opened her mouth, but nothing came. Finally, she whispered, He was with you, but he's gone. The man's breath caught. He tried to sit, then collapsed back against the cot with a guttural sound. His hand trembled as it reached for the empty space where the baby had been. His gaze darted back to Anna, sharp with grief and suspicion. Did you take him from me? Anna flinched, her throat burning. No, I found you like that. I was trying to help. Her voice cracked. And for the first time in weeks, she felt tears sting her eyes. I don't hurt babies. The accusation seemed to drain from his face, replaced by confusion. His head sagged back, and his breathing slowed into shallow wheezes. Grandma D put a hand on Anna's shoulder. Don't mind him. Pain talks nonsense. You did right, bringing him here. Anna nodded, though her chest still hurt from the man's words. She curled her fists at her sides. I just didn't want him to die cold. They worked in silence for a while. Grandma D brewed weak tea from dried herbs, spooning a little into the man's mouth. His throat swallowed reflexively. Anna watched every movement, waiting for him to wake again, to speak something that made sense. Hours passed. The storm's leftovers rattled the tarp, but the sun climbed higher, warming the sand outside. Anna finally sat back, exhausted. Her stomach growled, and she rummaged through their small crate of food, 2 stale rolls, half a jar of peanut butter, and a few dried apples. She split one of the rolls in half, spreading the thinnest layer of peanut butter she could manage. She glanced at the man on the cot, his face still pale, lips twitching in restless dreams. Then she pressed the roll into his limp hand. Here. If you wake up, eat this. It's all we got. Grandma D gave her a long look, pride and worry mixed together. You got a big heart, Anna Green. Just don't let it break you. Anna didn't answer. She pulled her knees up under her chin, eyes drifting back to the towel-wrapped baby in the corner. Her voice was barely more than a whisper. Why'd you let him sleep under the sand, Uncle? Why didn't you hold him tighter? The man stirred again, but gave no reply. Only the sea wind outside seemed to answer, carrying the faint crash of waves against the rocks. Anna leaned against the wall of the shelter, exhaustion finally overtaking her. Her eyelids drooped, but before sleep pulled her under, She made herself a promise, silent but fierce. She wouldn't let this man die. Not here. Not while she still had breath to pull him out of the sea's grip. And though she didn't know it yet, that promise would change everything, not just for him, but for her, and for a town that had long stopped believing in miracles. When Anna opened her eyes again, the air inside the tarp smelled of salt, smoke, and old cloth. The man on the cot was no longer still. His chest rose sharply, and his lips twitched as if fighting through some nightmare. His hand reached out, grabbing at the air until it caught the edge of the blanket. Anna scrambled closer. "Uncle, can you hear me?" His eyes shot open. For a moment, they were wild, like he was still lost in the waves. Then they focused on her small figure crouched beside him. He swallowed hard, his voice ragged. "Where's Henry?" The words struck Anna like a stone. She glanced toward the corner where the baby lay, wrapped in the towel, still unmoving. Her mouth went dry. "He was with you." "But he didn't wake up." "I'm sorry." The man struggled upright, his body trembling with effort. He shoved the blanket aside and searched frantically. His gaze landed on the small bundle. With a broken cry, he staggered across the short space, collapsing to his knees. He gathered the baby in his arms, rocking back and forth. "No, no, my boy," he whispered. "You hold on. You were warm in my arms. I didn't let go. I didn't let go." His voice cracked into sobs that shook the small shelter. Anna backed against the wall, hugging her knees. She wanted to say something, but her throat locked tight. She had never seen a grown man cry like this, not even when Grandma D coughed blood into her hands last winter. It scared her. It made him seem less like a stranger and more like a broken thing the sea had spat out. Grandma D stirred on her pallet, lifting her head. Her eyes softened at the sight, but she didn't interrupt. She knew grief when she heard it. The man pressed his forehead to the baby's cold cheek. He stayed that way for a long time, whispering words Anna couldn't always catch. "Henry. My light. My second chance." Then he froze, his head snapping up toward her, his voice sharpened. "What did you do? Did you let him slip away?" Anna shook her head violently. "No. I found you like that. I tried to help." Tears stung her eyes, but she blinked them back. "I don't hurt babies. I don't." The man's chest heaved. His hand gripped the bundle tighter. For a heartbeat, Anna thought he might lash out, but then something in his expression faltered. His eyes clouded with shame. He lowered his gaze. I'm sorry. I don't know what's real anymore." Grandma D's voice cut through, steady as stone. "Grief will make you blame the nearest soul, mister. Don't point it at a child who saved your life." The man closed his eyes, his shoulders slumping. He carried the baby back to the cot, laying it gently down before collapsing beside it. His breath rasped. "You should have left me there. Should have let the sea finish the job." Anna crept closer, anger pushing past her fear. "No. If I left you, you'd both be gone. I couldn't do that. Someone had to care." Her words hung in the air, sharp and small. The man stared at her again, studying her face as if seeing her for the first time. His voice, when it came, was softer. "What's your name?" "Anna," she said firmly, though her chin wobbled. "Anna," he repeated, as if anchoring himself. Then, after a pause, "I'm David." His eyes shifted to the watch still clinging to his wrist. He touched it like it was the only solid thing left in the world. Grandma D coughed, the sound rattling deep. "Well, David, you're breathing because of her. Best remember that before you go tossing blame again." David nodded faintly, though his gaze kept drifting back to the bundle on the cot. Anna sat across from him, her knees tucked under her chin. She stole glances at him in the quiet that followed. She had questions, so many questions, but didn't dare ask them yet. Who was he? Why was he on that yacht? Who was chasing him? But more than anything, she wondered if he would survive the weight pressing down on his chest. At last, David broke the silence. He was all I had left. His voice cracked, but he forced himself on. "My wife died a year ago. Suddenly. One morning she kissed me goodbye, and by nightfall, she was gone. Henry was the only piece of her I still had. I promised I'd protect him. He covered his face with his hands. And I failed. Anna's breath caught. She didn't know how to answer. She thought of her own father, gone before she was old enough to remember his face. Of her mother, who had drifted out of Eden Bay and never returned. She thought of Grandma Dee, coughing in the night. She whispered, "Sometimes you can't stop bad things. Sometimes they just happen." David lowered his hands, staring at her. His lips twitched with something between sorrow and wonder. "You're 6 years old." "How do you know that?" Anna shrugged, hugging herself tighter. "The world taught me." He looked away, his jaw clenching. For the first time, Anna thought maybe he wasn't just broken. Maybe he was scared. The day stretched on. Anna helped Grandma Dee tend to David's wounds with strips of cloth and sips of tea. He dozed in and out, murmuring Henry's name. Every time, Anna flinched. She couldn't bear to correct him anymore. Outside, the town stirred awake. Voices carried faintly from the market square, where fishermen repaired nets and women haggled over bread. None of them knew a billionaire lay half dead under a tarp at the edge of the dunes. None of them knew his son was already gone. When the sun dipped lower, David stirred again. His eyes met Anna's in the dim light. "Why did you really help me?" he asked. Anna hesitated, then lifted her chin. "Because nobody helped me when I needed it. I couldn't leave you there." David's breath caught. He closed his eyes, the words hitting harder than any wave. He whispered, "Then maybe you're the reason I'm still here." Anna didn't answer. She leaned against the wall of the shelter, staring at the baby's still form. In her heart, she felt something she couldn't name, like a rope had been tied between her and this broken man. A rope she hadn't asked for, but couldn't let go of. As the night settled in and the waves whispered outside, Anna knew the story wasn't finished. The sea had brought David Crane to her doorstep for a reason, and whatever it was, Eden Bay would never be the same. By late afternoon, the sky above Eden Bay had cleared, leaving only streaks of violet and orange along the horizon. The sea, calmer now, lapped at the shore with the same steady rhythm as a sleeping giant. Anna stood outside the tarp shelter, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. She could still hear David's voice inside, low and restless, murmuring Henry's name like a prayer that had lost its power. She wanted to stay close, but her grandmother's coughs grew harsher with each hour. Grandma Dee had pressed a crumpled dollar into her palm and whispered, "Go to Ellie's store, child, get bread. Maybe a bit of milk if she's merciful." So Anna walked. Her feet knew the path well, down the slope, past the broken pier where fishermen patched their nets, past the row of weather-beaten houses where curtains twitched at the sight of her. She ignored the stares. People always looked at her that way, like she was a ghost that haunted the town's edges. Too poor to belong, too alive to ignore. The bell above Ellie's storefront jingled as she pushed the door open. The warm smell of flour and old wood rushed out, wrapping her like a blanket. Behind the counter, Ellie herself stood sorting a basket of apples, her gray hair pinned back, her eyes sharp but kind. "Well, if it isn't Anna Green," Ellie said, her voice carrying both welcome and worry. "Storm didn't sweep you away, I see." "No, ma'am," Anna murmured, clutching the dollar tighter. She placed it on the counter. "We need bread, and, if you can, a little milk. Please." Ellie studied her a moment before nodding. She packed a loaf and a half-empty jug into a paper sack. Then, instead of sliding it across right away, she leaned forward. "What's wrong, child? You look like you've seen something heavier than the sea." Anna's lips pressed tight. For a moment, she thought of lying. But the image of David's tear-streaked face, and the weight of the lifeless baby swaddled in their corner, pressed too heavy. The truth slipped out in a whisper. "I found a man on the beach this morning. The sea brought him in. He was holding a baby, but the baby was already gone." Ellie froze, her hands tightening on the counter. "Lord have mercy. He's hurt bad," Anna went on, voice trembling. I brought him to our tarp. Grandma says he's breathing 'cause I dragged him, but I don't know what to do. He keeps asking for his boy. For a long moment, Ellie said nothing. Then she stepped around the counter, kneeling so her eyes were level with Anna's. Her voice was softer now. Steady like the tide. Listen to me, girl. Sometimes God doesn't send angels in white robes. Sometimes he sends children with bare feet and stubborn hearts. You did right. Anna blinked hard, her throat tight. But what if I can't help him? What if he dies anyway? Ellie's hand rested gently on her shoulder. You can't promise life, Anna. None of us can. But you can promise he won't be alone. That matters. The words sank deep. Anna nodded slowly. She accepted the sack of bread and milk, whispering, "Thank you, Miss Ellie." "Go on now," Ellie said, standing again. "And remember, don't carry his blame on your little back. The sea chose you for a reason." The bell jingled again as Anna stepped back outside. The streets of Eden Bay were beginning to stir with talk. Fishermen spoke of debris washing ashore. Some claimed they'd seen wreckage from a yacht drifting near the harbor. Others muttered about a missing man from the city. Some rich fellow whose name they didn't know. Anna tugged the sack closer and quickened her pace. When she returned to the tarp shelter, the air inside was heavy with grief. David sat upright on the cot, his hair damp with sweat. His face pale but burning with restless energy. He cradled the bundle of the baby still, rocking as if he could will warmth back into the small form. Anna hesitated in the doorway. Then she whispered, "I got bread." "And milk." David lifted his eyes to her, hollow and wet. "Do you know what it's like," he rasped, "to promise the world to someone and then watch it slip through your fingers?" Anna set the sack down. Her small voice trembled. "I don't know about promises, but I know what it's like when people leave. My mama left me. My papa never came back. Sometimes you just can't stop it." David stared at her. His hand trembled as it stroked the baby's cheek one last time. Then, with a shuddering breath, he laid the child back onto the folded towel. His shoulders slumped, the weight of surrender pulling him down. Grandma D, coughing from her palate, rasped, "Don't drown yourself in guilt, mister. The sea already tried to take you. Don't hand it the rest." For the first time, David seemed to hear her. He rubbed his face with both hands, then leaned back against the cot. His voice was barely audible. "My name is David Crane. I'm not supposed to be here." Anna tilted her head. "Then why are you?" His eyes flickered with something sharp, almost fear. "Because someone wanted me gone, and they nearly got their wish." The tarp fluttered with the evening wind, carrying the echo of his words into the dim shelter. Anna hugged her knees again, her mind racing. She didn't understand everything he meant, but she understood this. The man the sea had given her was not just broken. He was hunted, and as the night crept in, one thought refused to leave her heart. Saving him on the beach was only the beginning. The real storm was still to come. The shelter was quiet except for the soft snap of the tarp in the wind. Anna sat cross-legged on the sand-packed floor, tearing a piece from the loaf Miss Ellie had given her. She handed half to Grandma D, who broke it carefully into smaller bites, and tucked the rest away for later. Across the dim space, David lay propped against the cot's splintered frame, his gaze fixed on the folded towel where Henry's body rested. He hadn't moved for nearly an hour, his jaw clenched, his eyes hollow. Anna wanted to ask more questions, but she was afraid. She had seen enough grown men snap at her for less. Instead, her eyes strayed to the silver glint around his wrist. The watch caught the last of the evening light seeping through the flap of tarp. Its face was scratched, but still ticking, steady as a heartbeat. David noticed her staring. Slowly, he raised his arm and slipped the watch free. He held it in his palm, staring at the engraving on the back as though it were scripture. His lips moved, and finally he whispered, "David Crane, founder of Crane Biotics Incorporated." His tone carried both pride and shame. Anna frowned. The words meant little to her. "What's Crane?" Whatever that was. He let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "A company. My company. Worth more than this whole town 10 times over. His thumb traced the engraving again. And not worth a damn thing now. Grandma D lifted her head. Even in her weakness, her eyes sharpened. Money don't buy back what the sea takes. No, David agreed bitterly, but it paints a target on your back. People smile at you with knives behind their teeth. He pressed the watch against his chest. I had enemies. Still do. They wanted me gone, and they tried to use the sea to finish me. Anna's eyes widened. She shifted closer. So, somebody pushed you? Made your boat crash? David shut his eyes, breathing slow. Memories stirred the sudden stench of fuel, the sound of Henry crying, the explosion ripping through the night. His voice came ragged. The yacht was no accident. Someone tampered with the fuel line. It ignited like a bomb. I grabbed Henry, leapt into the dark. That's all I remember until I woke to your face. The little girl hugged herself tighter. The weight of his words pressed like a stone in her stomach. He wasn't just a man the sea had spit out. He was a man others wanted erased. Grandma D coughed into her blanket. If what you say is true, the folks who wanted you dead will come sniffin'. Eden Bay may be poor, but word travels. David nodded grimly. He looked at Anna. You shouldn't have dragged me here. You've put yourself at risk. Anna bristled, her small shoulders squaring. I couldn't just leave you. I told you I don't hurt people. I help. His eyes softened for a moment, then darkened again. Helping me might mean danger you don't understand. I already don't understand lots of things, Anna shot back. But I know leaving you would have been worse. The silence stretched between them, heavy but alive. Outside, the wind carried the distant sound of voices from town, the fishermen drinking, the gossip of women returning from the square. David rubbed his temples. If they think I'm dead, maybe we can stay hidden long enough for me to recover. Who are they? Anna pressed. He hesitated. Gregory Marsh. My deputy. Trusted him with everything. He's wanted my chair for years. And he'll do whatever it takes to get it. Anna tilted her head. So he's the bad guy? David almost smiled at the simplicity. Yes, Anna. He's the bad guy. His smile faded as quick as it came. But bad men don't always wear black hats. They wear suits. They shake your hand, and then they sink your boat. Grandma D muttered. Sounds like half the world I know. Anna inched closer still. If he wants you gone, then what'll you do? Hide forever? David stared down at the watch again. He turned it over in his hand. The ticking steady and cruel. No, I'll find proof. I'll show the world what he did, but right now, I can barely stand. His body slumped against the cot frame. Anna felt a strange resolve harden inside her chest. She didn't know much about companies or enemies in suits, but she knew something about fighting to stay alive. She reached for the watch in his hand. Then don't lose this. It's still ticking. That means you're still here. David looked at her small fingers curled around the edge of the watch. For a heartbeat, he almost laughed again. You talk like an old soul, Anna. Grandma says life makes you old quick, she answered matter-of-factly. The tarp rattled suddenly as a gust of wind slapped it aside. All three of them turned toward the opening. A shadow flickered just beyond the line of light. Anna's breath caught. Someone was out there. David's body stiffened. Did you see? Yes, Anna whispered. She scrambled toward the flap, peering out. Nothing but the dunes and the fading glow of sunset. Yet she swore she'd seen movement, a figure pulling back into the brush. David clenched his fists. It's begun. They'll come looking. The wreck wasn't far from shore. Word will spread fast. Grandma D's voice carried iron beneath the rasp. Then we keep quiet. We keep him hidden. Ain't the first secret Eden Bay's ever swallowed. Anna looked between them both. Fear prickled at her skin, but determination burned hotter. She hugged her knees and whispered, Then we'll fight the bad guy, somehow. David stared at her, both pained and astonished. This girl, 6 years old, barefoot, poor, was declaring war on the kind of men he had spent decades battling in boardrooms, and yet, For the first time since the sea had torn Henry from his arms, he felt something besides grief. He felt a spark of defiance. He slipped the watch back onto his wrist, fastening it with steady hands. Then let's not let him think he's already won. The night deepened around the shelter, shadows stretching long. Anna curled beside her grandmother, listening to the rhythm of the sea outside and the steady tick of David's watch. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, only that the man she had pulled from the sand carried a storm inside him, one that might sweep her whole world into places she'd never imagined. And somewhere beyond Eden Bay, in an office lined with glass and steel, Gregory Marsh surely raised a glass to David Crane's supposed death, unaware that the sea had not finished the story it had begun. The night air carried a damp chill, the kind that sank into bones and refused to leave. Anna sat awake near the flap of the tarp shelter, her chin resting on her knees. David's breathing came in uneven gasps behind her, punctuated by soft murmurs of Henry's name. Grandma Dee had drifted into a fitful sleep, her cough rattling like loose stones in a jar. The world around them seemed to hold its breath. Anna's eyes kept darting to the dark dunes beyond the fireless camp. She hadn't forgotten the shadow she'd seen earlier. It could have been a trick of light, or a gull skimming low. But deep down, she knew better. The crunch of gravel on the trail made her stiffen. She leaned forward, her breath caught in her throat. The sound stopped. Silence returned, heavier than before. She crawled out just far enough to peer across the slope. A man stood at the edge of the dunes, half hidden in the reeds. He wore a heavy jacket and a cap pulled low. In his hand, something glinted briefly in the moonlight metal, maybe binoculars, maybe worse. He wasn't looking at the sea. He was looking at them. Anna's pulse hammered. She ducked back inside, scrambling to David's side. She shook his shoulder. "Uncle, wake up. Someone's out there." "No." His eyes snapped open instantly, survival sharpening his expression. He pushed himself upright, wincing at the pain in his ribs. "What did you see?" "A man, watching." Her voice shook but stayed steady enough. "He had something shiny." He was right by the reeds. David's jaw clenched. He dragged himself to the tarp opening, peeking out carefully. The dune was empty again, shadows shifting under the moon. Still, his instinct screamed danger. He turned back, his voice low and urgent. "They found me." Anna's stomach nodded. "The bad guy's men?" "Yes." He pressed a hand to his temple. "Gregory won't risk coming himself. He'll send people to make sure I don't crawl back into the world." Grandma Dee stirred, coughing, then rasped, "I told you, child. Secrets in Eden Bay don't stay buried. The tide brings everything back." David gripped the frame of the cot, his body shaking but his eyes burning with determination. "I need to move. If I stay here, I'll bring danger to both of you." Anna grabbed his sleeve fiercely. "You can't. You can't even walk straight. They'll catch you." His gaze locked with hers. For a moment, the world outside faded. In her eyes, he saw something he hadn't felt in days: unyielding loyalty. He drew a shuddering breath. "Then we'll have to outlast them. Keep quiet. Stay hidden." The night dragged on in uneasy silence. Anna sat guard at the entrance, her small frame hunched like a soldier too young for war. David drifted between restless dozing and sudden jolts awake. Every time his eyes opened, he checked the bundle in the corner. Every time, grief crushed him all over again. Near dawn, when the sky turned from black to a dim gray, Anna dozed off against the pole. That's when the noise came. A crunch, a snap of twigs, then a low voice outside. "This way." "I saw smoke earlier." David's blood ran cold. He reached for Anna, shaking her awake. "Anna, out the back." "Now." She blinked groggily. "What?" "No time." His tone was sharp. He lifted himself from the cot with sheer force of will, grabbing the watch from the ground. He shoved it into her small hands. "Take this. If I don't make it, find someone you trust. Don't let it fall to them." Anna's eyes widened. "No, you're coming too." The voices drew closer, footsteps crunching sand. A flashlight beam slashed across the tarp, illuminating the thin walls. Grandma D wheezed from her pallet, her voice steady despite the rattle in her chest. "Go, both of you. I'll hold them off long enough. Ain't the first time I've faced men with hard eyes." "No," Anna's throat burned. "Grandma, do as I say," Dee barked, stronger than she'd sounded in months. David tugged Anna toward the back slit of the tarp. They slipped out just as the flap tore open. A beam of light swept across the empty cot, the bundled towel, the old woman glaring defiantly from her pallet. Two men stepped inside, both tall, both silent, faces shadowed by caps. One sneered. "Where's the man?" Dee coughed hard, spitting into a rag. "Ain't no man here but death. You best look elsewhere." Meanwhile, Anna and David stumbled across the dunes, moving as fast as his battered body allowed. The cold sand burned under Anna's feet. She clutched the watch in one hand, David's arm in the other. "Where do we go?" she gasped. David scanned the horizon. The lighthouse rose faintly in the distance, a crooked finger against the pale sky. "There. If anyone can keep us safe, it's whoever keeps that light burning." They pushed forward, hearts pounding, while behind them the shouts grew louder. Anna glanced back once, catching the glint of flashlights sweeping the dunes. Her stomach dropped, but she kept pulling. "Don't stop," David rasped, his breath shallow but fierce. "If they catch me, they'll kill me. If they catch you, they'll make sure no one ever knows the truth." The words sliced through the dawn air. Anna's fear twisted into something harder, fiercer. She tightened her grip on his arm and dragged him faster, her voice breaking but strong. "Then we'll get there first. We'll make it." The lighthouse loomed closer, its windows catching the first rays of morning. Each step was agony for David, but Anna's determination pulled them both. Behind them, the hunters' voices faded for now, swallowed by the restless sea. As they reached the rocky base of the lighthouse hill, David slumped against the stones, clutching his ribs. "I can't." "Yes, you can," Anna snapped. Her face was streaked with sweat and sand, but her eyes burned. "You said we can't let them win, so get up, please." For a moment, the strength in her voice reminded him of someone else, his late wife, defying him in boardrooms, laughing at his fears. He pushed himself upright, every muscle screaming. Together, they climbed the last stretch toward the lighthouse, the world around them heavy with silence and threat. And as the door creaked open ahead of them, Anna prayed the figure waiting inside would be a friend and not another shadow sent to finish what the sea had failed to do. The storm that had begun with wreckage on the beach was not over. It had only just found its legs on land. And Anna, the barefoot girl who refused to leave a stranger to die, was already tangled in its heart. The wooden door of the lighthouse groaned open, its hinges crying out against the morning wind. Anna's grip on David's arm tightened, her breath coming in short bursts. She braced herself for another stranger with a hard face and cold eyes. But instead, an older woman stood there, framed in the doorway like a sentinel. She wore a faded navy coat, her gray hair tied back beneath a wool cap, and her eyes sharp and steady as the beam above studied them both without a word. Anna blinked. "Please, we need help." Her voice cracked, but she didn't let go of David. The woman's gaze dropped to the man slumped against the stones, then to the small hand clutching his sleeve. Her expression softened, though her tone remained firm. "Get inside, both of you, quickly now before someone sees." She stepped aside, ushering them into the round chamber at the base of the lighthouse. The air inside smelled of oil and old wood, with a faint sweetness of tea leaves lingering from the pot warming on a small stove. A spiral staircase wound upward, vanishing into the tower above. David collapsed onto a wooden bench near the stove, his body trembling from the climb. Anna stayed pressed against him, one arm still looped through his. She half expected him to collapse altogether, but he remained upright, clutching his ribs with stubborn pride. The woman set the kettle aside and crouched in front of them. "My name's Marlene," she said. "I've been keeper here longer than most folks in town care to remember, and I've seen my share of people washed up from the sea. But you..." Her eyes lingered on David's face. then shifted back to Anna. "You aren't here by accident." David swallowed hard, his voice rasping. "You don't know what you're inviting into your home." Marlene's lips curved in the faintest smile. "The sea decides who it spits out. My job's to tend the light, not judge the wreckage." She rose, moving to a cupboard. "I'll fetch bandages," and the girl looks half frozen. "Sit closer to the stove, child." Anna obeyed, stretching her fingers toward the warmth. The kettle hissed softly, filling the silence. Her eyes followed Marlene's every movement, still wary despite the kindness. She didn't trust easily. When Marlene returned with a tin box, David stiffened but let her unwrap the makeshift scarf Anna had tied around his head. She dabbed at the gash with gentle precision. "You've lost blood, and your ribs at least 2 are cracked." David winced. "I've been worse." "No doubt," Marlene replied. She glanced at Anna. "He'll mend, but not without rest. You did right to drag him here." Anna's small shoulders straightened. The praise felt strange, almost heavy, but it warmed her more than the stove. For a few minutes, only the sound of cloth tearing and water dripping into the basin filled the air. Then David spoke again, quieter this time. "They're looking for me. Men who won't stop until I'm buried for good." Marlene paused, her hands steady on his bandages. "And why would they want that?" His jaw tightened. "Because I was supposed to die at sea. The explosion on my yacht wasn't an accident." He hesitated, then added, "Gregory Marsh, he's after everything I built." The name meant nothing to Anna, but Marlene's brow furrowed. "Gregory Marsh. I've seen him on the news. The kind that smiles for cameras with dead eyes behind them." David nodded grimly. "He'll have men watching the coast. If they saw the wreckage drift near Eden Bay, they'll know I might have survived." Anna couldn't stay quiet. "We saw someone last night," she blurted. "He was watching us from the dunes, then more came. They went into our tarp. Grandma D stayed. She told us to run." Her throat tightened. "I don't know if she's safe." Marlene's eyes softened. She reached out, resting a calloused hand briefly on Anna's shoulder. "Your grandmother is stronger than you think, and she made her choice so you could be here. Don't waste it." Anna nodded, but her heart still twisted. David pulled the watch from his wrist and set it on the bench, his eyes fixed on it like it held all the weight of the world. This is all I have left that matters. And even this won't save me." Marlene studied the watch, then the man who clung to it. "Proof comes in strange packages. Sometimes the smallest thing can topple the tallest lie." Her words lingered in the room, filling the silence that followed. Anna hugged her knees, her voice barely above a whisper. "Uncle, you said they want you dead. But what if you show everyone the truth before they can hide it?" David looked at her, startled by the raw determination in her young face. His lips parted, then closed again. He didn't answer. "Not yet." Marlene stood, setting the basin aside. "You both should rest. I'll keep watch tonight. The light can hide a lot when you know how to turn it." David leaned back against the wall, exhaustion dragging at him. Anna curled near the stove, the warmth lulling her despite the storm inside her chest. As her eyelids drooped, she thought of Grandma D's last command. "Go, both of you." When she finally drifted into sleep, the last thing she saw was Marlene standing at the door, her silhouette framed by the rising sun, watchful as the sea itself. And in that moment, Anna felt something she hadn't in a long time, not safety exactly, but the faintest flicker of hope. The lighthouse smelled of kerosene and tea when Anna woke. She blinked against the pale light slipping through the narrow windows, her cheek pressed against the coarse wool of Marlene's spare blanket. The stove had burned down to embers, but the room was warmer than the tarp shelter ever managed to be. For a moment, she almost let herself believe it was safe. Then she heard voices outside. Anna sat up quickly, her heart thumping. David was still asleep on the bench, his breathing heavy but steadier than before. Marlene stood at the door, one hand resting against the frame, her eyes narrowed as she peered toward the town. Anna crawled closer, whispering, "What is it?" Marlene didn't look down. "Trouble, child. Sounds like word has traveled faster than we hoped." A sharp knock rattled the door. Anna jumped back. David stirred, groaning, as Marlene pulled the latch but didn't open fully. Through the crack came the stern voice of Sheriff Bolton, Eden Bay's lawman for 20 years. "Morning, Marlene. Town's been buzzing since dawn. There's talk of wreckage washing ashore, and talk of survivors. You seen anything unusual?" Marlene's tone was calm, almost bored. "The sea spits up wreckage every storm. Nets, crates, once even a piano. Haven't seen a soul today." But Anna's eyes widened as she noticed David trying to push himself upright. He was mouthing something, "Don't let them in." She scrambled to his side, pressing her small hands against his chest, whispering, "Stay down, Uncle, please." Sheriff Bolton wasn't so easily dismissed. His boots scuffed against the threshold. "There's a reward in the papers. Man named David Crane. Big city tycoon. Folks say he went down with his boy, but others claim he might have survived. If he did, and he washed up here, that'd bring attention Eden Bay hasn't seen in years." Marlene's voice sharpened just enough to cut. "And what would the town do with him, if he had? Parade him through the square? Sell him back to the sharks that tried to eat him?" Bolton cleared his throat. "I just ask my questions, Marlene. Orders come down from the county. If Crane's alive, he needs to be turned over. For his own safety, they say." David's eyes blazed at the words. For his own safety, he knew exactly what that meant. He pressed a finger to his lips, warning Anna again. She crouched lower, tucking herself between him and the stove, trying to hide the sound of his ragged breath. After a long pause, Marlene said, "You know, this light's been my watch longer than the counties cared about Eden Bay. If a ghost crawled out of the sea, I'd be the first to tell you. But I've seen none." Silence stretched. Then Bolton sighed. "If you do, Marlene, you know where to find me." His footsteps retreated, heavy against the stone path. When the sound faded, Marlene shut the door with deliberate care. She turned to find Anna clutching David's sleeve, her eyes wide with fear. "You hear that?" David rasped. "They'll paint me a fugitive, and you," his gaze dropped to Anna, "they'll call you a thief, a liar, maybe even worse." Anna swallowed hard, but her voice came steady. "Then we don't let them. We tell the truth first." David almost laughed, a hollow sound. "Truth doesn't matter when money speaks louder. Gregory has half the county in his pocket. By sundown, my face will be plastered across every wall with a story that makes me the villain." Marlene set her hands on her hips. "Then you'd better decide quick what story you want told, David Crane. Because a girl this small shouldn't be carrying the weight of it for you." Her words cut sharper than she intended. David looked away, shame flickering across his features. He had built empires, commanded boardrooms. But here in this forgotten town, he was nothing but a hunted man leaning on a child's stubborn heart. Anna, refusing to shrink under the heaviness of it, whispered fiercely, "You said Gregory's the bad guy. Bad guys lie. So we show his lies." David stared at her. Something in her fire, so raw in a girl so young, reminded him of the wife he'd lost the way she once challenged him to fight for something more than profit. He rubbed his face, muttering, "Proof. If we're to survive, we need proof." Anna perked up. "Like something from the boat?" His eyes snapped open. He reached weakly for the coat Marlene had set beside him. From the inner pocket he pulled a small waterproof pouch, scuffed but intact. He laid it on the bench, unzipping it with trembling fingers. Inside rested a sleek, dark device metal, no bigger than a book. Blinking with a faint green light, Anna leaned in. "What is it?" David's voice dropped low. "My insurance. A secure drive. It carries documents, recordings, everything I gathered on Gregory. Corruption, bribes, cover-ups, enough to bring him down. If I can get this into the right hands." Marlene frowned. "And who'd those hands be?" "The sheriff's already sniffing for a payout. The county? Bought and sold. You need someone outside. Someone who doesn't bow to money." David's jaw tightened. "I know someone. Julia Monroe, reporter. She's covered our industry for years. One of the last who still believes in truth. But reaching her from Eden Bay, he trailed off, despair creeping in. Anna hugged her knees, her voice small but steady. Then we find her. We send it. Somehow, Marlene watched the two of them broken billionaire, barefoot child and felt something stir in her chest. Against all reason, she believed them. She believed the sea had not delivered these lives to her door without purpose. You can't stay here long, she warned. Bolton will be back, and next time he won't come alone. Tonight, I'll help you slip into town. I know places eyes don't reach. David looked at her with weary gratitude. Why risk yourself? Marlene shrugged, turning back to the stove. I've tended this light my whole life. What good is it if I can't guide more than ships? Anna's heart swelled at the words. For the first time since the beach, she felt a plan forming, not just survival, but a way to fight back. Still, when night fell and the lighthouse beam swept across the dark water, Anna couldn't shake the image of the sheriff's boots at the door. The hard men on the dunes, the paper posters she knew would soon bear David's name. The world outside was closing in. And inside her chest, the same thought pulsed with every beat of her heart. The truth has to live. Even if we don't. The lighthouse beam swept across the sea in steady arcs, its light slicing the dark like a watchful eye. Anna sat near the stove, hugging her knees, while David hunched over the small device he had pulled from the waterproof pouch. Marlene sat at the table, pouring tea into chipped mugs. The room carried the silence of people who had already said too much, and yet not enough. Finally, Anna broke it. So, who is she? The reporter. David glanced at her, his face lined with exhaustion, but there was a flicker of something else, hope, maybe. Julia Monroe. She's one of the few in the city who still tells stories that matter. She's stubborn, relentless, doesn't scare easily. Years ago, she tried to expose Gregory's backroom deals. But he buried her article, bought her editor, and she nearly lost her career. I always respected her for trying. If anyone would believe me now, it's her. Matt. Anna tilted her head. So we just find her? Give her this thing? She pointed at the drive, blinking faintly on the bench. David exhaled. It's not that simple. Gregory will already be flooding the press with his version. Missing billionaire, tragic accident, grieving partner taking over the company to stabilize operations. He'll look like a savior. If I appear suddenly, they'll call me a fraud, or worse. Marlene set her mug down with a firm clink. Then you don't appear. Not yet. You get her the evidence first. Let the truth speak before your face does. Anna thought hard, her brow furrowing. How do we send it? We don't have computers. We don't even have a phone. David rubbed his forehead. The sheriff's office has connections to the county network, but we can't risk that. There's a radio tower near the edge of town. It relays signals for the fishing crews. If I can connect this drive to their line, I might send the files directly to Julia's inbox. It's crude, but it could work. Marlene shook her head slowly. That tower's watched. Every fisherman knows who comes and goes there. You'd be spotted in minutes. Then I'll go, Anna blurted. The words left her mouth before she could think. Both adults turned to her, startled. She sat up straighter, her voice rising. They're looking for a man, not a little girl. Nobody will care if I walk near the tower. I can slip inside while they're not watching. David's face hardened. Absolutely not. You don't understand how dangerous this island. I understand plenty. Anna shot back, her cheeks flushed. I dragged you off the beach when you couldn't move. I hid you from those men. If they're not looking for me, then I'm the only one who can do it. Her words hung in the air. Marlene studied her, the lines of her face deepening. At last, she said quietly, "She's not wrong, David. The girl has slipped through cracks all her life. Folks don't see children like her. That's her strength." David clenched his jaw. He looked at Anna, at her small frame and fierce eyes, and saw both Henry's innocence and his wife's fire. He swallowed hard. "If you do this, you don't go alone. I'll find a way to get you close, but Marlene's right. You're invisible in ways I can't be. Still, you carry my life in your hands if you take that drive. Anna lifted her chin. Then I'll carry it. Marlene's gaze lingered on the girl, then softened. If she goes, she'll need a story. Children don't wander near radio towers without reason. But an errand, a basket, something ordinary, that could cover her. I can do that, Anna said quickly. I run errands all the time for Grandma. Nobody notices. David rubbed the bridge of his nose, torn between fear and necessity. This is madness, but maybe madness is all we have left. The plan began to take shape in whispered fragments. They would wait until the third night, when the town was distracted by the weekly market gathering. Marlene would provide a basket of bread to make Anna look like just another child running food to a fisherman. David would coach her on how to connect the device to the relay line. Once the files were sent, Julia would know where to look. As they talked, Anna noticed David's hand tremble when he reached for the watch on his wrist. He stroked it absent-mindedly, the way someone might hold a rosary. She asked softly, "Uncle, why do you keep touching that?" David looked at her, his expression distant. "It was a gift. From Henry's mother. On the day we started the company, she said, 'Let this remind you of time well spent.' I never thought I'd outlive them both." His voice cracked, and he looked away. Anna's small hand reached across the bench, resting lightly on his. "You haven't outlived everything. You're still here. You still have to fight." For a moment, silence pressed around them, broken only by the steady sweep of the lighthouse beam. Then David nodded, his voice raw. "You're right. I owe it to Henry, and maybe to you too." That night, when the lighthouse finally quieted and David drifted into uneasy sleep, Anna lay awake. She stared at the dark ceiling, her mind racing with images of wires and towers, of men in caps with cold eyes, of posters with David's face stamped wanted. She didn't feel like a child at all. She felt like someone holding a secret bigger than the ocean itself. She whispered into the darkness, words only the sea might hear. "I'll get her the truth. I promise." The waves answered with their eternal hush, as if reminding her that promises were heavier than any tide. And somewhere far from Eden Bay, in a city of glass towers, Julia Monroe sat in her cramped office, unaware that a barefoot girl she had never met was about to place the fate of a billionaire, and perhaps her own future, squarely in her hands. The town square of Eden Bay pulsed with life that evening, brighter than it had since the storm. Lanterns flickered along the market stalls, fishermen shouted over one another to sell what little the sea had spared, and families bustled with baskets and chatter. For most, it was a night to forget the wreckage and broken nets. For Anna, it was cover. She clutched the wicker basket Marlene had pressed into her arms, a loaf of bread, some dried fish, and a folded note from a grandmother to her son at the docks. It was the kind of errand that kept children like her invisible. Only this time, hidden beneath the bread was the blinking drive David had entrusted to her. David had leaned close before she left the lighthouse, his voice raw and urgent. "Plug it into the relay line at the tower. There'll be a small metal box with cables near the base of the platform. Connect the port and wait for the light to flash red, then green. When it turns solid green, the files will be gone, sent to Julia. Don't wait after that. Don't look back." Anna had nodded fiercely, though her stomach twisted in knots. She remembered his hand on hers, trembling but strong. "You're braver than most men I've ever known," he'd whispered. She hadn't told him she was terrified. Now, weaving through the crowded square, she forced her steps steady. No one looked twice at her. Adults rarely did. To them, she was just Anna Green, the barefoot girl with two big eyes and a sick grandmother. That invisibility, tonight, was her shield. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on her back. At the far edge of the square, the radio tower rose above the fishing sheds, its metal frame slicing into the night sky. A dim red light blinked at its peak. A single watchman leaned against the fence, smoking, his gaze more on the market's bustle than on the structure behind him. Anna's pulse quickened, She ducked behind a stack of crates, setting the basket down just long enough to steady her breathing. "You can do this," she told herself. "You dragged a man from the sea. You can sneak past one watchman." She waited until a group of fishermen staggered past, laughing too loud with drink. Their shadows swept across the fence. In that moment, Anna slipped forward, hugging the darkness until she reached a gap where the chain link sagged. She wriggled through, clutching the basket tight. The shed beneath the tower hummed faintly, the relay box bolted to its side. Just as David had described, she crouched, heart racing, and pulled the device from beneath the bread. The green light blinked, waiting. Her fingers trembled as she fitted it into the port. The hum deepened. A tiny red light flickered, then blinked faster. She bit her lip, whispering, "Please work, please." Footsteps crunched. Anna froze. The watchman had moved, his cigarette glowing closer. She ducked behind the box, pressing her body flat against the wall. The red light on the drive blinked faster still, then suddenly turned green, solid. It was done. She yanked the device free, stuffing it back beneath the bread. But as she turned to crawl away, the beam of a flashlight cut across her face. Well, the watchman drawled. His cap shadowed his eyes, but his smile was sharp. "What's a little rat doing under government wires?" Anna's chest seized. She forced her voice steady. "My grandma sent me. I'm bringing bread to my uncle at the docks. I got lost." The man stepped closer, his flashlight sweeping over the basket. It lingered too long. Anna tightened her grip. "Funny place to get lost," he muttered. He reached down, plucking the loaf from the basket. The drive slipped deeper beneath the wrappings. Anna held her breath. Then a voice rang from the square. "Tommy, you done with your smoke? We need another hand at the stalls." The watchman cursed under his breath. He shoved the loaf back, glaring at Anna. "Get out of here, girl. Next time I see you sniffing around, I'll tell the sheriff." Anna bobbed her head quickly, clutching the basket to her chest. She scrambled through the fence and into the crowd before her knees could give way. Only when she reached the far side of the square did she allow herself to breathe. Her chest rose and fell like waves crashing against rocks. She'd done it. The files were gone, on their way to Julia Monroe, but relief came sharp and fleeting, because across the market, tacked to the wall of the tavern, she saw it. A poster. The ink was fresh, the edges still curling from the damp air. At the center was David's face, clean-shaven and corporate, not the bruised and battered man she knew. Beneath it, in bold letters, "Wanted for questioning, David Crane." And below that, smaller print, "Suspected fraud, corporate embezzlement, endangerment of minors." Anna's stomach dropped. The crowd hadn't noticed yet, but soon they would. She backed into the shadows, clutching the basket so tightly her knuckles burned. Gregory had already moved. He hadn't just written David's obituary, he was writing his crimes. When Anna returned to the lighthouse, her legs ached from running, but she didn't care. She burst through the door, breathless. Marlene was by the stove, David on the bench with his head in his hands. Both looked up sharply. "It's done," Anna gasped. The light turned green. "I sent it, but..." She pulled in a shaky breath. "They put up posters. With your face. They say you're wanted. For terrible things." David's eyes darkened, his jaw clenching. Marlene crossed herself under her breath. "They're making you the villain," Anna whispered. "And now everyone will believe it." David rose slowly, pain etched in every movement. But his voice was steady, iron beneath the weariness. "Then we fight harder. Gregory thinks lies can drown the truth. But the tide's turning. Anna, you just sent it straight to the one person who can drag him into the light." Anna looked at him, her chest tight with both fear and pride. For the first time since the beach, she saw not just a broken man but someone ready to fight back. Yet even as David spoke, the poster's image burned in her mind. She knew what it meant. The hunt wasn't coming. It had already begun. The posters went up faster than the tide. By morning, every post in the square, every tavern wall, and even the church doors bore David's face. His corporate photograph stared coldly back at the town, clean suit and steady eyes, a cruel contrast to the bruised, half-broken man crouched in Marlene's lighthouse. The words beneath the image carried weight in a place as small as Eden Bay. Wanted for fraud, endangerment, and questioning. Report any sightings to Sheriff Bolton. Anna had gone into town at first light to fetch water, only to find a group of fishermen huddled near one of the posters, spitting curses between their teeth. Figures, one muttered, jabbing the image with his knife. Rich men never drown like they're supposed to. They crawl back with pockets full of lies. Another grunted. Bolton says he's dangerous. Fraud, child neglect, even left his baby to die in the wreck. A man like that don't deserve saving. Anna had hugged the jug of water to her chest, slipping away before they noticed her listening, but their words burned in her ears all the way back to the lighthouse. When she burst through the door, David was pacing in the narrow space, his jaw tight. Marlene sat at the table, arms folded, her eyes tracking him. Anna set down the jug and blurted, "They all believe it. Everyone in town. They say you left Henry to die." David froze, the name caught in his chest like glass. For a moment his face crumpled, but he forced it back into stone. Of course they believe it. Gregory writes the script, and the world nods along. Anna's fists clenched. But it isn't true. You jumped with Henry. Truth doesn't matter when lies are louder. David cut her off. His voice rose, harsh with frustration. He's painted me a monster. And now every man and woman in this town will watch for me. One glimpse, and Bolton will drag me away under the banner of justice. No. Marlene's voice cut through, calm but firm. Then we use their noise. A crowd chasing lies makes it easier to slip truth past their noses. David sank onto the bench, burying his face in his hands. Julia needs to get that file soon. If she publishes, if she exposes Gregory, then maybe the tide turns. Anna sat across from him, her small hands gripping the edge of the table. So what do we do until then? Just hide? He lifted his head slowly, meeting her gaze. For a moment, he saw more steel in her eyes than in his own. We survive, and we trust Julia to do her part. But the day did not pass quietly. By noon, the sound of boots echoed up the path to the lighthouse. Anna darted to the window slit, peering out. A group of men trudged up the dunes, 2 fishermen she recognized and Sheriff Bolton at their lead. His broad frame filled the trail, his badge glinting in the sunday. "They're coming," she hissed. Marlene was already moving. She pulled open a trap door near the stove, revealing a narrow passage that smelled of damp stone. Storage tunnel. Leads to the cliffside. Go. David gritted his teeth, struggling to his feet. Anna slipped under his arm, helping him to the opening. They scrambled into the darkness just as a heavy knock rattled the door above. "Open up, Marlene." Bolton's voice thundered. "We've had reports. Don't make this harder than it has to be." "Nye." Anna held her breath, listening as Marlene's voice floated down faintly through the boards. "Reports of what?" "My light's been steady, my kettle full. Only thing unusual here is your pounding." The sheriff's boots thudded. "Don't play games. The tide don't spit out billionaires without someone noticing. If Crane's here, you're harboring a fugitive." Anna and David shuffled through the narrow tunnel, stones scraping their arms. David whispered hoarsely, "She's risking everything for us." Anna gritted her teeth. She said the light hides more than ships. She knows what she's doing. The tunnel opened to a ledge overlooking the crashing sea. Gulls wheeled above, their cries sharp in the wind. David slumped against the rocks, his breath ragged. "We can't keep running forever." Anna scanned the horizon, spotting the narrow trail that wound down toward the abandoned cannery at the bay's edge. "There. Nobody goes there anymore. We can hide until Marlene finds us." Together, they stumbled down the path, the basket still clutched tight in Anna's arms. The cannery loomed, its windows shattered, its walls rust-streaked from years of salt air. Inside, the air smelled of rust and ghosts. but it was shelter. As they collapsed against the wall, David pulled the watch from his wrist, staring at it as if it might speak. "Time," he muttered. "Always time. Gregory knows the longer I stay hidden, the less the world will care. Julia has to move fast." Anna curled beside him, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "She will." "I know it." David looked at her, something soft flickering in his weary eyes. "Why do you believe so much? In me? In her? In any of this?" She hugged her knees. "Because if I don't, then nothing means anything. And I can't live like that." The words silenced him. In them, he heard echoes of his wife's stubborn hope, of the life he had promised Henry but failed to keep. He reached out, resting his hand lightly on Anna's shoulder. "You're braver than I deserve." Before Anna could answer, a sound broke through the cannery, the crunch of footsteps on broken glass. She stiffened. David's eyes narrowed. They weren't alone. The hunt was closing in, posters turning neighbors into predators, and every step outside the shadows carried the weight of betrayal. The cannery's walls, once a shield, now felt like a trap, and as Anna's hand tightened on the basket with the hidden drive, she realized their fight for truth had only begun. The sea hadn't drowned David Crane, but Eden Bay might. The cannery's cavernous interior swallowed sound, every drip of seawater from the corroded pipes echoing like a drumbeat. Dust swirled through the dim light slanting in from broken windows. Anna pressed her back against the wall, clutching the basket tight, while David crouched beside her, his face pale, his breath shallow but his eyes alert. The crunch of footsteps grew nearer. Whoever was inside moved slowly, deliberately, like someone who knew they weren't alone. Anna's heart pounded against her ribs. She whispered, barely moving her lips, "What do we do?" David's voice was hoarse but steady. "Stay quiet. Wait for them to show themselves. The first move always belongs to the one who doesn't panic." The footsteps stopped. Silence pressed in. Then a low voice called out, echoing through the vast hall. "David Crane, I know you're in here." Anna's stomach dropped. She recognized the voice. Sheriff Bolton. David clenched his jaw, his fists tightening. "Of course," he muttered. "Gregory's hound." Bolton's voice carried again, louder. "The town knows you're alive. Posters are everywhere. You can't run forever. Come out now. And maybe I can guarantee your safety." David let out a bitter laugh under his breath. Safety. That's what they called it when they threw men into dungeons in the name of order. Anna tugged on his sleeve. "Don't answer," she whispered urgently. "He's lying. I can hear it." Bolton's boots scraped across the floor. "I'll find you, Crane, and when I do, that child you've dragged into this will be taken too. Harboring a fugitive has consequences even for little girls." "Meh." Anna's blood turned cold. She pressed closer to David, her small hands shaking, his face hardened, fury flashing in his eyes. "Listen to me," he whispered fiercely. "If they find us, you run. Take the drive and run. Don't stop until you're far from here." Anna shook her head violently. "No, I won't leave you. I told you I don't leave people." Bolton's shadow stretched across the floor as he stepped closer, his flashlight beam sweeping through the hall. It caught the rusted machinery, the skeletons of old nets, but not them yet. Suddenly, another set of footsteps joined his. A younger voice muttered, "Sheriff, maybe he's not here. The place is falling apart." Bolton growled, "He's here. I can smell desperation." David leaned close to Anna, his whisper sharp. "Now." He gestured toward a collapsed stairwell at the far end, its boards broken but still leading up to a catwalk. Anna nodded. She slipped first, clutching the basket, her small frame moving silently over the debris. David followed, wincing with each step, his breath ragged. The catwalk groaned under their weight. Bolton's flashlight swung upward, catching the movement. "There!" he barked. Anna's heart leapt into her throat. She scrambled forward, but the catwalk shuddered violently. A plank snapped. She cried out as her foot slipped through, the basket nearly tumbling from her grasp. David lunged, grabbing her arm just as Bolton's men shouted below. The sheriff's voice thundered, "Don't let them escape." With a heave, David pulled Anna free, shoving her ahead. "Go!" They sprinted across the unstable walkway, splinters raining down. Behind them, footsteps pounded as Bolton and another man gave chase. At the far end, the catwalk led to a shattered window overlooking the sea. Wind howled through the gap, the drop below jagged with rocks and foaming waves. Anna froze. We can't." "We can," David said firmly. "It's the only way." Bolton's boots clanged closer, his flashlight beam cutting through the dark. "You're finished, Crane. Don't make it harder." David looked at Anna, his expression fierce but gentle. "Trust me." She nodded, her throat tight. Together, they climbed through the window, balancing on the ledge. The sea roared below, spray stinging their faces. David glanced back once, meeting Bolton's furious eyes. "You'll never bury me with lies," he spat. Then he leapt, pulling Anna with him. The plunge stole her breath. Cold salt water slammed into them, dragging them under. Anna clutched the basket tight, her lungs burning, her small body twisting in the current. She kicked wildly until her head broke the surface. David surfaced beside her, gasping, his arm hooking around her shoulders. "Swim, Anna, to the rocks." They fought the waves, every stroke a battle. Behind them, Bolton's shouts echoed faintly from the cannery, but he didn't follow into the sea. At last, their feet struck sand near a cluster of jagged rocks. They collapsed onto the shore, coughing, trembling from the cold. Anna lay on her back, staring at the dark sky, her chest heaving. The basket was still in her arms, the drive safe beneath the bread. She let out a shaky laugh. Half relief, half madness. "We did it." David rolled onto his side, wincing. "We bought time. That's all." His eyes burned with determination despite his exhaustion. "But time is enough. Julia has the files now. Gregory's lies won't last." Anna turned her head to look at him. The waves crashed around them, the lighthouse beam sweeping far in the distance. She whispered, "They'll never believe the posters when the truth comes." David gave her a weary smile. "Then we keep fighting until they do." Above them, gulls wheeled in the storm-dark sky, their cries sharp against the roar of the sea. The chase wasn't over. Eden Bay had shown its teeth, and Gregory's reach stretched further than either of them could see. But lying there on the cold sand, Anna knew one thing for certain. She would not let go, not of the basket, not of David, not of the truth that was already breaking free. The sea had delivered a hunted man to her, and now it demanded she carry him further than either of them had ever imagined. The storm was still coming, and this time, it was on land. By the time David and Anna dragged themselves back to the lighthouse, their clothes clung heavy with seawater, and their bodies trembled from exhaustion. Marlene opened the door before they even knocked, her lantern throwing a golden glow across her weathered face. One look at them soaked, shivering, David barely able to stand, and she pulled them inside without a word. The warmth of the stove felt like a miracle. Marlene pushed them toward the fire, stripping the wet blanket from Anna's shoulders and tossing it aside. She fetched dry cloth from a trunk, her hands brisk but her eyes soft. "You've stirred the whole hornet's nest now," she muttered. "Bolton's men came sniffing not long after you left. Lucky I sent them chasing shadows." David lowered himself onto the bench, wincing as his ribs screamed in protest. "He nearly had us. We only got out because the sea gave us another chance." He glanced at Anna, who was hugging the basket like it was her own beating heart. She never let go of it. Marlene crouched, peering at the girl. "That so?" Anna nodded, her chin lifting. "It's the truth. And it has to live." The room fell into silence, the weight of her words hanging heavier than the storm outside. David's hand trembled as he reached for the watch on his wrist. He rubbed the face with his thumb, staring at the engraving. "Gregory has turned the whole world against me. He's painted me a monster. But Julia has the files now. If she opens them..." His voice cracked. "If she opens them, the world will finally see." Marlene leaned back on her heels, studying him. "And if she doesn't?" If the city swallows her like it swallows all who push too hard, David's eyes darkened. Then all of this will have been for nothing. Anna set the basket down gently, scooting closer. Her small hand slipped into his, her fingers cold, but determined. It won't be for nothing. You're alive, and I believe her. She'll listen. For the first time that night, David let himself breathe. He squeezed her hand, his voice soft. You shouldn't have to carry this, Anna. You're just a child. She met his gaze, her eyes older than her years. Children know when grown-ups are lying. I've been watching lies my whole life. This is different. Marlene stood, her shadow stretching across the stone wall. Then we make a pact. The three of us. Until Julia speaks, until the truth finds light, we guard it, no matter the cost. She held out her hand, calloused and steady. Anna placed her small one atop it. After a moment, David set his scarred, trembling hand over theirs. The lighthouse pact, Marlene said firmly. If the sea spit you out, Crane, it was for a reason. And if this girl dragged you from the sand, then you're bound to her as much as she is to you. That's more than fate, that's purpose. David swallowed hard. His eyes shone in the lamplight, grief and hope colliding. Then I swear it, for Henry, for Anna, for the truth. The pact sealed in silence. They sat for a long while, listening to the waves pound against the cliffs. But peace did not last. Near midnight, a pounding came at the door. Not the sharp knock of lawmen, but frantic, desperate. Marlene snatched her lantern and cracked the door. A fisherman stumbled in, face pale, his clothes soaked. He clutched his arm, blood seeping between his fingers. They're asking questions, he gasped. Men not from the county city men. Suits, guns. They came to the dock, demanding if anyone saw a survivor from the wreck. They say there's money for proof. David's stomach dropped. Gregory's reach had stretched faster than he feared. Mercenaries, he muttered. He's not leaving it to Bolton anymore. The fisherman's eyes flicked to him, widening. He opened his mouth, but Marlene stepped between them. You saw no one tonight, she said sharply. Her gaze was iron. Go home, tend that arm, tell no one you came here. The man hesitated, then nodded. Stumbling back into the storm, Anna hugged herself, her teeth chattering despite the fire. Uncle, what if Julia doesn't get the files in time? What if these men find us first? David leaned forward, gripping the edge of the bench. Then we keep moving. We can't stay in one place too long, but I believe she has them now. If she's the woman I remember, she'll already be piecing together the story. Marlene poured hot tea into tin cups, her voice low. Hope is a fragile raft, Crane. Don't climb it unless you're ready to row. David managed a faint smile. I've rowed through worse storms, but when the lighthouse beam swept across the bay, Anna noticed how his shoulders sagged when he thought no one was looking. He was fighting the weight of the world, and she, a barefoot girl, had become his anchor. As the night deepened, Anna curled on the floor near the stove, half asleep, listening to the murmur of Marlene's low voice and David's ragged replies. She dreamed of waves crashing over towers of glass, of posters with David's face burning in fire, and of Henry's laugh carried away by the wind. When she woke near dawn, David was still awake, the watch ticking in his palm. He looked at her and whispered, If the truth survives, Anna, it will be because of you. She shook her head, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Because of us. Outside, the storm had passed, but the world was far from calm. The posters still plastered the town. Bolton still hunted. Gregory's men were closing in, but inside the lighthouse, 3 hands had made a promise. And promises, Anna thought, were stronger than lies. Even stronger than the sea, the market square buzzed louder than gulls over fresh catch. The storm had passed, but its wreckage lingered, nets shredded, docks splintered, and rumors thicker than smoke. Anna kept her hood low as she weaved through the crowd, a small basket on her arm. Marlene had insisted she listen, not just shop. Ears are worth more than coins when truth hides in shadows, the lighthouse keeper had said. Anna stopped near a stall where 2 women bartered over fish. Their voices were sharp enough to cut through the din. "They say Bolton almost caught him at the cannery," one whispered. "Crane?" the other asked, lowering her voice. "Lord have mercy, I saw the poster. Fraud, endangerment, even left his child to die. And to think some folks claim he's hiding right here in Eden Bay." The first woman crossed herself. "Best he's caught soon. A man like that only brings trouble." Anna's fists tightened on the basket. She wanted to shout that they were wrong, that David had fought the sea with Henry in his arms, that lies were painting truth black, but her grandmother's voice echoed in her head. "Sometimes silence is sharper than speech. Let them talk. You just listen." Further down the square, a group of fishermen leaned against a post where a fresh poster fluttered. This one had bold red letters stamped across David's face. "Wanted dead or alive." Anna's stomach turned. "Marsh must want him gone bad," one fisherman muttered. "A reward like that could fix every boat in this harbor." Another spat into the dirt. "If he's here, he won't last the week. Not with the sheriff sniffin' and city men waving coin." Anna backed away, her heart thudding. She had heard enough. She slipped through the alleys, hugging the shadows, until the lighthouse's tall frame rose above the cliffs. Inside, David sat at the table, his head bowed over the watch. Marlene brewed tea, her back to him. When Anna burst in, her voice trembled. "They've raised the reward. They say dead or alive. And the town wants the money." David's shoulders stiffened, but he didn't lift his head. "Gregory's moving faster. He wants me erased before Julia can act." Marlene turned, her eyes narrowing. "Did you hear any word of the files? Has anything broken yet?" Anna shook her head, setting the basket down. "Nothing, just lies." "Huh." David exhaled sharply, frustration thick in the sound. "Julia should have them by now. Why hasn't she moved? Unless—" His voice broke off. The possibility hung heavy. Maybe she had been silenced too. Anna crossed the room, her small hand gripping his sleeve. "No. She's not like that. You said she was stubborn. Maybe she's making sure everything's real before she speaks." David looked at her then. Truly looked. And saw her certainty burn brighter than his despair. He nodded slowly. "You're right. She won't rush. She'll make sure the world can't ignore it." Marlene poured the tea into tin cups, her voice steady. "While we wait, we plan. Bolton's not fool enough to storm the lighthouse outright. But with that reward, half the town will turn hunter. We need another place to vanish if the light draws too much heat." Anna frowned. "Where?" "The caves by the north cliff," Marlene said. "Smugglers used them once. Tunnels run deep, some even back to the sea. If we're forced out, that's where we go." David rubbed his temples, pain flickering across his face. "I can't keep running like this. My body's breaking faster than my will. But if Julia does publish, Gregory won't just chase me, he'll try to silence anyone tied to me. That includes you." His eyes swept between Anna and Marlene. "If you stay with me, you're targets." Anna lifted her chin, fierce despite her trembling hands. "We already are. So we fight." Marlene gave a small, proud smile. "The girl's right. Eden Bay has lived in shadows too long. Maybe it's time the light served more than ships." The day passed in tense quiet. They patched blankets, packed small bundles of food, and kept ears sharp for approaching boots. As night fell, Anna sat by the window, watching the waves crash against the cliffs. She imagined Julia Monroe opening the files, her eyes widening as truth spilled out. She imagined the story breaking, posters ripped down, and Gregory Marsh finally exposed. But when sleep came, her dreams twisted. She saw Bolton's face on every poster, the town chasing her with nets and ropes, David's hand slipping from hers into the sea. She woke with a start, tears on her cheeks. David stirred on the bench beside her, his voice low. "Bad dreams?" She nodded, unable to speak. He reached out, resting the watch in her palm. "Hold this for tonight. It's more than a timepiece. It's proof I still exist, that I'm not the ghost they want me to be." Anna curled her fingers around it. the ticking steady against her skin. She whispered, "Then I'll keep you alive until the world listens." David's eyes softened. Stronger words than most men in my boardroom ever spoke. Before dawn, a knock rattled the door soft, urgent, not the heavy thud of Bolton. Marlene grabbed her lantern and cracked the door. A boy stood there, barely older than Anna, breathless from running. He held up a folded paper. "From the city," he panted. "Someone paid me to bring it. Said it was important." Marlene snatched it, slipping the boy a coin. When he vanished into the dark, she unfolded the paper by lantern light. Her eyes widened. "It's from Julia." David was already on his feet, pain forgotten. "What does it say?" Marlene read aloud, her voice trembling. "Files received. Story verified. Printing begins tomorrow." "Hold on." For a moment, silence filled the lighthouse. Then Anna let out a laugh that cracked into a sob. David sagged against the wall, his face breaking with both relief and terror. "She has it," he whispered. "The truth is about to breathe." Marlene's jaw tightened. "Then Gregory will strike harder than ever. He won't let the story spread without blood. We have hours, maybe less, before the storm hits here." Anna clutched the watch to her chest. She could hear its ticking, louder now, like a countdown. The lighthouse pact had carried them this far. Now the whole world was about to hear their secret, and Eden Bay would become a battlefield before the sun set again. The town awoke to whispers that traveled faster than the tide. By sunrise, men at the docks were no longer arguing about the price of fish, they were muttering about newspapers from the city. By mid-morning, a fisherman carried a crumpled copy through the square, the ink still fresh. Headlines shouted from the page: "Corruption in Crane Biotics, CEO's Accident," a cover-up. Julia Monroe's name was beneath the title, bold and undeniable. Anna saw it first when she slipped into town with Marlene's basket. The fisherman's voice boomed as he read aloud to anyone who'd listen. "Gregory Marsh implicated in scheme to seize power. Evidence includes bribes, sabotage, and deliberate tampering of Crane's yacht." Gasps rippled through the crowd. For the first time, David Crane's name wasn't followed by fraud or villain, but survivor. Anna's heart soared, though she kept her face hidden under her hood. She hurried back toward the cliffs, clutching the news like treasure. But as she darted through the alleys, she noticed something that twisted her stomach. Not everyone looked surprised. A few faces turned hard, whispering too low to hear. And at the far end of the square, Sheriff Bolton stood stiff as a post, his jaw clenched, his eyes scanning the crowd like a wolf. By the time Anna reached the lighthouse, she was breathless. She slammed the door shut behind her and waved the crumpled paper in triumph. "She did it! Julia did it!" David rose from the bench, his face pale but his eyes alight. He took the paper with trembling hands, reading each word as if afraid they'd vanish. His lips moved, soundless at first, then broke into a whisper. She told the truth. She told the whole damned truth. His knees buckled, and he sat hard on the bench, covering his face. For the first time since Henry slipped from his arms, tears spilled freely, not of grief, but of something fragile and rare, hope. Anna knelt beside him, her small hand resting on his sleeve. "See? I told you she'd believe." Marlene, however, stood at the window, her expression grim. "And Gregory will believe it too. He won't go quietly. If the city's paper printed this, his men will be here by sundown. The lighthouse won't hold against them." David lowered the paper, his jaw tightening. "Then we don't wait for them to corner us. We move before the storm breaks." Anna frowned. "Move where?" He looked toward the horizon, where the sea shimmered under the morning Sunday, to the caves Marlene spoke of. "If Gregory's men descend on Eden Bay, they'll expect us trapped here. But if we vanish into the cliffs, we might outlast the hunt long enough for the truth to spread wider." Marlene crossed her arms. "The caves are no safe haven. They flood with the tide, and the ground shifts underfoot. But between the sheriff, the posters, and Marsh's mercenaries, it may be the only place left." Anna hugged the watch to her chest, its ticking loud in her ears. Then we go. Tonight, the day stretched painfully slow. Word of the newspaper reached every corner of Eden Bay. Some townsfolk whispered of Crane's innocence, others dismissed it as another lie. The posters still clung to the walls, defiant against the ink of truth. And Sheriff Bolton paced the square like a man caught between duty and debt. His badge glinting sharp in the Sunday. Back at the lighthouse, David prepared what little he could carry, a roll of bandages, a flask of water, and the watch he refused to part with. Marlene packed dried fish and matches into Anna's basket. They worked in silence, each movement heavy with the knowledge that they were stepping into the unknown. As dusk bled into night, Anna stood at the lighthouse door, staring at the town below. Lanterns flickered, casting long shadows. She could almost feel eyes searching for them already. Her chest tightened. "Uncle, what if they find us in the caves?" David crouched beside her, his face lined but steady. "Then we keep moving. Every step we take with the truth alive is a step Gregory can't erase. You gave Julia the chance to speak. Now we give the world time to listen." Anna swallowed hard and nodded. When the last light faded from the sky, Marlene doused the lantern. The lighthouse went dark for the first time in years, its beam extinguished. The town below stirred in confusion, voices carrying across the water. "Won't that bring them here?" Anna whispered. "That's the point," Marlene said. "Let them come knocking at an empty door." They slipped out the back, following the narrow trail along the cliffs. The sea crashed against the rocks below, each wave like a warning drum. David leaned heavily on Marlene's arm, his ribs aching, but his eyes stayed fixed on the horizon. Anna led the way, the basket bumping against her hip. The entrance to the caves yawned black against the stone, hidden behind a tangle of driftwood and brush. They ducked inside, the air damp and cold, the sound of dripping water echoing through the tunnels. Anna shivered but kept walking, clutching the watch tight. They settled in a chamber deep enough to hide but close enough to hear the sea. Marlene lit a small fire, its glow casting jagged shadows on the walls. David sank against the rock, his breath ragged but his eyes fierce. "We've bought ourselves one more night. Tomorrow, the world will either rise with us or bury us deeper." Anna curled beside him, her voice soft but certain. "The truth's already out. They can't bury it anymore." But outside the cave, in the dark beyond the cliffs, lanterns flickered along the shore. Men in suits moved like shadows, their voices low, their purpose clear. Gregory's storm had reached Eden Bay, and inside the cave, the lighthouse pact braced for the fight to come. The cave walls sweated with salt and silence. Anna sat close to the small fire, her arms wrapped tight around her knees, staring at the shadows dancing across the stone. David rested against the wall, his breath steady but shallow, one hand pressed protectively over his ribs. Marlene paced near the entrance, listening to the sea. Outside, the muffled crash of waves carried a rhythm that felt too close to marching boots. Then Anna saw it, the faint flicker of orange against the cave mouth. Not the glow of fire, but lanterns, swinging back and forth. Her breath caught. "They're here." Marlene crouched low, her hands snuffing the fire with a swift motion. The chamber fell into darkness, the air thick with smoke and fear. "Stay quiet," she hissed. Voices drifted through the night. Men talking low, their accents sharp, not local. One barked, "Spread out. Marsh wants him alive long enough to make it look clean." David's jaw clenched. He whispered hoarsely, "Mercenaries." Not Bolton's men, Gregory's directly. Anna's hands trembled, but she held the watch tight in her palm. Its ticking was a lifeline, steady even as her heart raced. The lantern light grew brighter as figures approached the cave. Shadows stretched long across the stone, then froze as one man called out, "You hear that?" Breathing, Anna's chest tightened. She pressed herself against David, willing her heartbeat to silence. Marlene's voice, low and sharp, cut the air. "Back deeper, both of you. Now." David gritted his teeth but let Anna pull him toward the narrow tunnel at the rear of the chamber. Their footsteps echoed faintly as they slipped into the dark passage. crouching low. The air was colder here, laced with the scent of the tide. Behind them, boots scraped stone. The mercenaries entered, their lanterns casting harsh circles of light. One kicked aside the remnants of the snuffed fire. Someone was here, not long ago, another grunted. Check deeper. Anna's breath came fast, shallow. David leaned close, whispering so softly she barely heard. If they catch us, take the basket and run. Don't argue. Promise me. She shook her head fiercely. I'm not leaving you. His eyes, shadowed and fierce, met hers. Anna, please. You're the reason the truth still breathes. If I fall, you can't. Before she could answer, a beam of lantern light swept across the tunnel wall, missing them by inches. Marlene appeared suddenly, her voice echoing from the chamber like a flare of defiance. Looking for ghosts, are you? The sea buries its dead better than you ever will. The mercenaries spun toward her voice. Old woman, where are they? Marlene laughed, sharp and hollow. Closer than your conscience, further than your reach. A scuffle broke out, boots pounding, shouts filling the cave. Anna gripped David's sleeve. She's drawing them off. David's face twisted in anguish. She'll be killed, or she'll buy us time, Anna whispered, pulling him deeper into the tunnel. The passage narrowed, forcing them to crawl. Rocks scraped Anna's knees, and the roar of the tide grew louder until it filled her ears. The tunnel opened suddenly into a small cavern, where moonlight poured through a crack above, reflecting off a pool that led straight to the sea. David collapsed against the wall, gasping. We can't outrun them much longer. Anna crouched beside him, desperation clawing at her chest. We don't have to. Julia's printing the truth right now. We just have to live until it spreads. His eyes softened as he looked at her, pride mingling with sorrow. You speak like you're carrying the world, Anna. That weight should never have been yours. She shook her head. It is mine now. The sea gave it to me. Before he could answer, footsteps echoed again, closer this time, cutting through Marlene's distraction. Lantern light flickered through the cracks. The mercenaries were hunting blind, but they were closing in. David pushed himself upright, pain twisting his face. We can't wait here. If they find us cornered, it's over. Anna glanced at the pool of water, the tide surging through it. Then we go out the way the sea gives us. David hesitated, staring at the dark water. It's too dangerous. The current, but Anna's small hand closed over his. Uncle, the sea saved you once. It'll save us again. He stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. All right, together. They waded into the pool, the icy water stealing their breath. Behind them, shouts grew louder, boots pounding closer. Just as a lantern beam burst through the crack, Anna and David plunged into the current. The water yanked them forward, tumbling them through the narrow tunnel. Anna clutched the basket against her chest, salt burning her eyes, the roar of the sea deafening. Then, with a violent rush, they were spat out into open water beneath the cliffs. The moon hung above, silver on the waves. Anna surfaced, gasping, searching for David. His head broke the surface moments later, his arm thrashing until it found hers. They'll search the cliffs, he panted. We have to drift further out before we come ashore. The current carried them, pulling them beyond the reach of lantern light. Behind them, the cliffs burned with torches as Gregory's men scoured the rocks. But the sea held them close, hiding them in its vast arms. By the time they crawled onto a lonely stretch of beach far from town, dawn was already bleeding into the horizon. Anna collapsed on the sand, her chest heaving, the basket still clutched in her arms. David sprawled beside her, his breath ragged but alive. For a long while, neither spoke. The waves lapped gently against the shore, as if mocking the storm they had just escaped. Finally, David whispered, Marlene. She stayed behind for us. His voice cracked, grief raw. Anna pressed her face into her knees. She told us the light was more than ships. Maybe now it's us. David looked at the watch still strapped to his wrist. Its ticking was faint, steady. He touched it gently, then turned his gaze to Anna. We keep moving. For her, for Henry, for the truth. Anna lifted her head, eyes blazing despite her exhaustion. Then let's make sure Gregory never puts out the light. The sun crested the horizon, painting the sea in gold. The town of Eden Bay stirred in the distance, unaware that 2 fugitives had slipped from the teeth of the hunt. The lighthouse pact had lost a keeper that night, but the tide carried its survivors forward. The storm was far from over, but now, Anna and David knew. The sea had chosen them for the fight, and there was no turning back. The beach where David and Anna washed ashore was quiet, tucked far from the docks and market square. They huddled under a broken jetty, shivering as the sun climbed higher, drying the salt from their clothes. Anna's fingers were still stiff from the cold, but she refused to loosen her grip on the basket. The watch ticked faintly inside her pocket, its sound steadying her. David lay beside her, eyes half closed, his breath shallow. His body had taken too many blows, salt water, exhaustion, wounds never tended properly. Yet his mind was alive, restless. He turned his face toward her. We can't stay hidden forever. Eden Bay will split when Julia's words sink in. Some will cling to Gregory's lies. Others will see the truth. That division will decide if we live or die. Anna hugged her knees, staring at the town rising beyond the cliffs. Then we need to show them. Not just words on paper proof. If they saw you. If they heard you. David shook his head, pained. If I walk into that square now, I'll be shackled before I can open my mouth. Bolton will see to that. Anna's brow furrowed. So what do we do? He pressed a hand to his ribs, forcing himself upright. We wait until night. Then we go back into town, not to the square, but to the people who can still be swayed. Fishermen, workers, those who've lived under Gregory's thumb. If they see I'm alive, if they see I'm not the villain on those posters, maybe they'll start to doubt. Anna's chest tightened. But what about Marlene? The question hung heavy between them. David closed his eyes, guilt etched into his face. If she fell buying us time. The only way to honor her is to make sure it wasn't wasted. Anna swallowed hard, tears stinging her eyes, but she nodded. Then we fight for her too. As the day passed, the town buzzed louder than bees in summer. Julia's article had cracked something open, and Eden Bay didn't know how to mend it. At the tavern, men argued until fists flew, some shouting that Gregory had bought every sheriff and mayor from here to the capital, others spitting that city papers lied as easily as politicians. The posters of David still fluttered, but now some were torn, defaced with crude words like thief crossed out and replaced with survivor. Sheriff Bolton watched from the steps of his office, his jaw locked. His badge caught the sunlight, but his authority no longer shone so bright. 2 fishermen muttered as they passed him. If the city says Marsh tampered with the yacht, then Crane's no villain. Maybe Bolton's chasing the wrong man. Bolton's eyes narrowed, his fist tightening around the rolled posters in his hand. By dusk, Anna and David crept into town through the alleys, staying in the shadows. David wore a fisherman's coat they'd stolen from the jetty, its hood low over his bruised face. Anna walked a step ahead, her small figure drawing little attention. They moved toward the edge of the docks, where lanterns flickered and men gathered after long hours at sea. Anna tugged his sleeve, pointing toward a group clustered around a barrel fire. Them? They're talking about you. David hesitated, his breath shallow, then stepped forward. The men looked up, suspicion flickering in their eyes. One spat. Who's the stranger? David pulled back his hood. The firelight caught his battered face. Gasps rippled through the group. One man swore under his breath. Another took a step back. It's him, someone whispered. Crane. For a moment, silence thickened. Then David spoke, his voice raw but steady. The posters call me a liar, a fraud, a man who abandoned his child. But I stand here, alive, to tell you the truth. Gregory Marsh killed my son. He sabotaged my yacht to erase me, to take everything I built. And now he wants your silence too. The men shifted uneasily, glancing at one another. One spoke up, his voice hard. How do we know you ain't spinning another story? Rich men lie as easy as breathing. Anna stepped forward, her small voice fierce. Because I saw him. I pulled him from the sea with my own hands. I saw him hold his baby, even when the waves tried to tear them apart. He didn't let go until he couldn't hold anymore. That's not a liar. That's a father. The men's faces softened, some lowering their eyes. One, older than the rest, spat into the fire. Marsh's money has choked this town for years. Maybe it's time we choke back. Another muttered, careful, or Bolton'll drag you in for saying that. David met their eyes, one by one. Bolton serves a man who would rather drown a child than lose $1. Ask yourselves who deserves your loyalty, a sheriff's badge bought with bribes, or the truth your children deserve to grow up with. The group fell into heavy silence. Then the oldest fisherman nodded slowly. You have more to lose than any of us, Crane. If you're standing here, maybe the city paper wasn't lying after all. David bowed his head, gratitude flickering in his weary eyes. But before the moment could deepen, shouts erupted from the square. Lanterns flared, boots thundered. Anna's stomach dropped. Bolton's men were sweeping through the alleys, calling for order, waving posters like weapons. David pulled his hood up quickly, his voice low. We have to move. The fishermen glanced at one another. Then one whispered, go to the loft above the tannery. It's empty since the storm. You'll be safe there for a night. Anna's chest swelled with relief. She grabbed David's hand, pulling him toward the shadows. As they slipped away, the oldest fisherman called softly, hold the line, Crane. Truth has a way of finding daylight. They reached the loft as the town boiled with noise. From the high window, Anna watched Bolton shout at the crowd. His face red, his words sharp. But for the first time, she saw doubt in the eyes of the townsfolk. Cracks in their obedience. David sank against the wall, every breath heavy, his face pale. Anna knelt beside him, pressing the watch into his hand. They're listening now. We just have to keep them listening. He closed his fingers around it, whispering, if Marsh wants a war, then Eden Bay will decide whose truth survives. The night deepened, and the town divided itself by whispers and lantern light. And in the shadows of the loft, Anna and David prepared for the next dawn, knowing it might bring not just the truth, but blood. The loft smelled of salt, leather, and the faint stench of old fish hides. Anna woke to the sound of gulls screaming outside and the distant murmur of voices. She sat up, rubbing her eyes. Through the cracks in the wooden wall, she could see the town square filling earlier than usual. Lanterns swayed in the hands of men and women gathering in restless knots. David was already awake, sitting near the window with the watch in his hand. His face looked drawn, his skin pale, but his eyes held a clarity Anna hadn't seen before. They're choosing sides, he said quietly. This is the day Eden Bay decides if it belongs to Truth or to Gregory. Anna crawled closer. And if they don't believe you? He glanced at her, then back at the square. Then we run again, but something tells me running won't save us anymore. The story is out there now. People are angry. They just don't know where to point it yet. By mid-morning, Sheriff Bolton stood at the front of the crowd, a rolled poster in his hand. His voice boomed, trying to command authority. This town has lived in peace under law, and the law says David Crane is a fugitive. Harboring him is harboring treason. We will find him, and we will deliver him to justice. A murmur ran through the crowd. Some nodded, others frowned. Then an older fisherman, one of the men who had seen David the night before, called out, and what about Gregory Marsh? The city papers say he sank the yacht, say he killed a child. What justice covers that? The crowd stirred, louder now. Bolton's jaw clenched. Lies, fabrications by people who don't live here, don't know this town. But the fisherman didn't back down. We know Crane's alive. Some of us have seen him. He doesn't look like the monster you paint him. Bolton's face reddened. He raised the poster like a shield. Anyone spreading these rumors will answer for it. From the loft window, Anna's heart pounded. She tugged David's sleeve. They're ready to hear you. They need you. David's breath hitched. He looked down at his trembling hands. If I go out there, Bolton will try to drag me in chains. Anna lifted the watch from his palm and pressed it back into his hand. Then don't go as a fugitive. Go as Henry's father. Go as the man they tried to erase. For a long moment, he stared at her, the faint ticking filling the silence. Then he stood, straightening his shoulders despite the pain. If we die today, Anna, let it be with the truth on our tongues. They slipped down from the loft into the alley. The noise from the square grew louder with every step. When they emerged into the sunlight, gasps rippled through the crowd. David Crane stood tall, bruised and battered, his coat hanging loose, his face bare to the morning light. Bolton's eyes widened. "Crane!" He surged forward, hand reaching for his pistol. "You're under arrest." But before he could take another step, Anna darted in front of David, her small arms spread wide. Her voice, high and trembling, rang across the square. "No, you won't take him. You all know the truth. You've heard it. You've read it. Gregory Marsh killed his boy. He tried to drown him in the sea. I pulled him from the sand myself. Don't you see? He's alive because the truth wouldn't stay buried." The crowd erupted in shouts. Some cheered, others jeered. But the tide had shifted. The same fisherman raised his voice. "She speaks true. This girl saved him. Look at her, look at him. Marsh lied, and Bolton carries his lies." Bolton's face twisted with fury. He yanked the pistol free, raising it toward David. "Step back, or I'll end this now." The crowd gasped. But David stepped forward, his voice carrying over the uproar. "Go ahead, Bolton. Shoot me here, in front of your neighbors. Prove to them that your badge serves money, not justice. But know this truth has already left Eden Bay. Julia Monroe printed it. The world knows Marsh's crimes. Kill me, and you'll only make me a martyr to the truth you tried to bury." For a heartbeat, silence froze the square. Bolton's hand shook. His eyes darted across the crowd, faces watching, judging. Doubt flickered. Then, slowly, one by one, townsfolk stepped between Bolton and David. The fishermen, the fishmongers' wives, even a young dockhand barely old enough to shave, they moved, forming a line of bodies. The sheriff's pistol wavered, his authority crumbling under the weight of their defiance. "You'll have to shoot us too," the fisherman growled. Bolton's face went pale. With a curse, he shoved the pistol back into its holster. "You'll regret this, all of you." He stormed through the crowd, his deputies trailing behind. When he was gone, the square erupted. People surged toward David, voices overlapping questions, praise, fear. David raised his hand, his voice steady despite exhaustion. "I'm not here to divide you. I'm here to tell you what Gregory Marsh did to me. To my family. To all of us. His corruption reaches further than Eden Bay, but the truth is out now. And it began here with a little girl who refused to let the sea bury me." He gestured to Anna. She flushed, ducking her head, but the crowd's eyes softened. Some even knelt to her level, murmuring blessings. David's voice lowered, heavy with grief. "My son, Henry, is gone. I couldn't save him. But this child saved me. And through her courage, the truth has a chance to live. I ask you, don't let Marsh's lies drown Eden Bay. Stand with me, stand with her, and we'll make sure justice reaches even the richest hands." The crowd roared, a sound like waves breaking on rock. For the first time, Anna saw the posters torn down, crumpled underfoot, burned in the fire pits. The town had chosen. As the sun climbed higher, David sagged, his strength fading. Anna caught his arm, steadying him. "You did it," she whispered. He looked at her, his eyes wet but burning with pride. "No, Anna. We did. That night, lanterns burned in Eden Bay not as symbols of the hunt, but as beacons of defiance. The lighthouse pact had held through storm and blood, and now the town itself carried its flame. Gregory Marsh was still out there, powerful and furious, but Eden Bay had spoken. The tide had turned, and for the first time since the wreck, David Crane believed that justice might yet find its way to shore. This story reminds us that truth can't be drowned, no matter how powerful the lies. It shows the courage of a child, the resilience of a broken man, and the strength of a community willing to stand together. When we refuse to be silent in the face of injustice, even the smallest voice can carry farther than the storm.